Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, for those of you who don't just skip from Halloween to Christmas. Now, before we get into how you can make Thanksgiving a little bit more eco-friendly this year, let's talk about the dark side of the celebration, especially because I really didn't know it myself, so maybe you don't either. Hello everyone, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all sorts of things zero waste, focusing on free, easy, and fun ways to live low waste. If I talk a little bit too fast for you, good news, YouTube has a gear icon right down here where you can change the speed of the video. So, sorry to my non-US friends, this is a US only holiday, but if you're looking for more holiday content, I will leave it down below from zero waste Christmas, zero waste gift giving, zero waste Black Friday, how to throw a zero waste party this time of year, and so much more. You can check it out down below. So this is a US based holiday that is celebrated on the 4th Thursday of November. Let's give a little bit of a history about this holiday and just acknowledge its true past. So it's based on a feast from 1621 from colonial pilgrims who got off the Mayflower. But even then, that's just kind of like historically where it started, but it wasn't until 1777, 150 years later, that the first American Thanksgiving happened on November 1st with the 13 colonies. This is where they joined to celebrate their victory over the British at Saratoga. But the first national Thanksgiving still didn't take place until 1863 when Abraham Lincoln was trying to kind of divert people's attention away from the Civil War and be like, hey, no, everybody, we're still friends, we're still friends. It didn't work. So bringing it back to that first Thanksgiving. This happened with the colonial pilgrims who got off the Mayflower near the Wampanoag Indigenous Peoples nations. Here, Tisquantum, otherwise known as Squanto, he was abducted from his Wampanoag home, taken to Spain where he escaped, fled to England, learned English, returned back to the United States, to his Wampanoag home, only to find that everybody from his village was gone, though other Wampanoag tribes remained. But when he got back, he found European settlers really struggling, so he decided, I'm gonna help you learn how to plant, learn how to live with this land because you're new here. In 1621, they had a very successful harvest and they wanted to celebrate before the start of the winter, so they had a feast. They were shooting off guns and cannons and celebrating, and the Wampanoag nearby were like, hey, what's going on over there? Let's go check it out. They simply wanted to scout. They arrived peacefully, they saw that they were just having a feast, they stuck around, they made up their own camp right outside of town, and just kind of hung out there. They were not invited to this feast at any point, despite what history would like to tell us. Was there any of butting heads or any violence? I don't think so, according to the oral histories that I was reading from the indigenous peoples, which is linked in the blog post. But there were high tensions because there were 90 Wampanoag people and only 23 survivors of the Mayflower, so they were quite outnumbered, which put them on edge. And that's really all of the history that there is about that first Thanksgiving. Was it friendly? Not really. Was it unfriendly? Not really. So, generally speaking, in school, we learned that this was very friendly. The Euro-Americans invited the Wampanoag people to come and have a feast with them, and that is just not the case. Plus, this just really was a starting point for the dark history that continues to this day, over the last 400 years for indigenous peoples in North America. This is just the start of many false narratives that we have to unlearn. I'm not saying to stop celebrating this holiday, but I think it is very important that we acknowledge the truth about this holiday, and also acknowledge the truth about the indigenous peoples in our country, as well as for countries like Canada. And remember to not celebrate it in accordance to the overstretched truth. Now, why do I even bother to bring this up? That is because environmentalism is intersectional. All of these different issues are connected. Racism is connected to environmentalism. Sexism is connected to environmentalism. Race and poverty and all of these different things are all connected. And if you want to learn more, I highly recommend this book right here, The Intersectional Environmentalist. I talk more about my eco book recs in this video. So let's move on. How can you honor the planet while still having this celebration with your friends and family? First is the party. If you're the one hosting, be sure to send out invites in an eco-friendly way. Basically, just don't send out physical invites. I'm not sure who's doing that for Thanksgiving. I have never seen that personally, but if you do, just consider starting a group text on your phone. And if you want to do something a little fancier, you can get onto Canva and create something like this, a little e-invite that you can mail to people, post it on Facebook, text to people, etc. Mailed invites are often thrown away, at the best recycled, and are such a waste of emissions to ship them and also postage. But maybe you're traveling for Thanksgiving this year, you're going to someone else's house. What you can do is travel in an eco way, such as carpooling with your friends, carpooling with your cousins and other family members. You could drive instead of fly, or maybe you live in a part of the country that you can take public transportation instead. Do what you can with your budget and how much time you have allowed to travel. Or maybe you're like us and you don't want to spend $1,000 per person to travel to Ohio. No offense, family members, but that's a lot of money to go to Ohio. And you also live in a small space like this and you can't really host a party. Just have a small, very intimate Friendsgiving, which leads us to food. This is definitely the star of the show for this holiday, because that's kind of the premise of this holiday. First, know how many people you're cooking for. You don't need to prepare 100 bread rolls for a party of 10 people. You don't need several main dish options if you only have a few people attending. Of course, leftovers can be great, but there is such a thing as too much. So be mindful not to overcook. But if you do have leftovers, have a plan for them. Not everybody likes leftovers, and that's okay. Send them home with somebody who does like them. You can also divvy them up to all the different guests, so that way nobody has too much that they can't consume. Bonus point if you send your leftovers home in a reusable or reused container, you reduce a little bit more waste. If you're you're the one hosting, make as much as you can from scratch. Of course, it's easier said than done, but this will greatly reduce the amount of single-use packaging that you're buying for all of the foods. For example, making rolls from scratch typically just requires flour, water, maybe some yeast, or some sourdough starter. That's really it. Far less packaging in general, especially plastic packaging. Now, of course, that is a lot of work. What you can do instead is make it a potluck party. Everybody brings one homemade dish to share. That way this really takes off the workload from one individual person, and then everybody gets to try a bunch of different foods. Don't click away, but try a vegan or vegetarian Thanksgiving this year. Or just cut back on the animal products. I know that turkey is a very traditional food to eat for this holiday, but it is possible to go turkeyless. The star of the show are the side dishes. What if we just did a bunch of side dishes and no meat? Would that be so bad? If you want to learn more about why eating vegan is better for the planet, you can check out this video. I'm not saying that everybody has to be vegan. You can be vegan, you can be vegetarian, you could just cut out a little bit of meat, or you can change no part of your diet. You're still an environmentalist, don't worry. But even something as simple as using veggie margarine instead of butter is a step in the right direction for the planet, as well as this just makes your meals more accessible to those in your family who are vegan and vegetarian. Then they can eat more of the foods available. Something else that you can do that's beneficial for the planet when it comes to food is shopping locally. If you want to make an apple pie, go to a local apple orchard. If you want to make a pumpkin pie, support a local pumpkin farmer. Even if you are going to do meat, ham, or turkey, go support a local farmer. If this is not possible for you, your next best option is to go to your grocery store, your regular grocery store, and shop for small brands off the shelves. That will take a little bit of research, not gonna lie. It is relatively easy to find who owns these companies and if they're truly small brands or not. Better yet, go to a truly small grocery store, a family-run grocery store in your town versus a mega corporation. And if you want to learn more about why shopping small is so much better for the planet, you can watch this video next. Not only should we be avoiding throwing away our leftovers, but try to avoid throwing away any of your food scraps. Take those bones from your turkey and make bone broth. Take those apple scraps from your apple pie and make homemade apple cider vinegar. The peel from your pumpkin, compost it. There are so many ways that you can reuse your food scraps before throwing them away and before composting them. I actually did a video last year right here with my friend Kelly. I think we did 10 ways that you can avoid food waste during Thanksgiving, so definitely check that one out. Why should we bother preventing food waste though? That is because Americans will waste over 3 million pounds of food just from Thanksgiving. One day, one country. 300 million pounds of food. That is crazy. And food waste ending up in the landfill creates emissions, and I have a full video on that. You can check it out up here. So every little bit that we keep out of the landfill, the better. Moving on to dishing up that meal, how can you make that more sustainable? So the average US household will increase their waste by 25% from Thanksgiving to Christmas. This is things like food waste, unwanted gifts and decor, but also disposable plates, cups, and so forth. So let's reduce that. First, try reusable plates, otherwise known as plates. I called them reusable plates once on Instagram and people hated me for it, but I'm just like, they are reusable. It's not a wrong thing to say. But yes, even if you're hosting a large group, I still encourage you to do this. It does reduce the largest amount of waste. And it's possible on a budget by going to the thrift store and thrifting some extra plates, bowls, cups, spoons, forks, etc. We did this a lot when we hosted in Okinawa and it was always a success. I particularly like this because now even during the meal, it's so much easier to reuse that plate because it's more durable. It's not going to get soggy and fall apart. It made cleanup a lot easier. I didn't have to empty the trash several times throughout the night because it was getting full of plates. And honestly, it does save you money in the long run. Not a whole lot, but the savings are still there. But if this is not an option for you for one reason or another, opt for eco-friendly disposables. What I mean here is avoid the styrofoam, avoid the plastic. Opt for bioplastic and or paper. Especially if you have curbside commercial compost that you can put these bioplastics and paper products into, that's a great thing as well. My favorite brand here to shop is Repurpose. To make drinks a little more sustainable, you can get some of these drink dispensers with like the little tap on the bottom and make your own drinks. Especially things like lemonade and tea are so easy to make, low waste. But say even you fill them up with apple cider that you buy in gallon jugs. If you buy 1 gallon jug apple cider, that's far less packaging than buying a bunch of 8-ounce bottles of apple cider. So it's still much less waste, even if there is some waste. And then you can have guests use reusable cups. Maybe they're cups that you already have at home or that you thrift, or you can opt for these cups from Ball. They are metal, technically disposable, but they're so easy to wash and reuse and can even go in the dishwasher. Or you can opt for drinks in recyclable packaging such as plastic bottles, metal cans, or glass, as opposed to things like carton board and pouches. Of course, this does depend on your local recycling rules, so be sure to check your local recycling rules before buying any sort of products. Speaking of, be sure that you're also offering guests the chance to recycle and compost correctly. Have the bins out. Have them labeled. Have your rules put on a little piece of paper above the bin so that way people follow the rules, hopefully. You might still have to do a little bit of sorting here and there throughout the night or the next day. The more that people follow the rules, the better that it is for you and the planet. Now, what about entertaining your guests? Let's move on to games and activities. There are many waste-free Thanksgiving activities that just happen every year and are already part of everyday's tradition, such as watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, watching the football game, and things of that nature. But you could also play a board game, play a card game, My Midwest family loves euchre. You could play an outdoor game if the weather permits, something like kickball or hide and seek. You could have coloring pages available for the children and the adults. Who am I kidding? Or you could simply just catch up with each other over drinks and just talk for the evening. But ultimately, avoid wasteful games. I think I bring this one up in every single video that I talk about the holidays. It's popular, I see it a lot, and it's so wasteful. It's that saran wrap ball game. You buy dollar store junk, you buy a bunch of saran wrap, you wrap it all up, and then to play, the person wears oven mitts, tries to unwrap it, they get to keep the prizes that they unwrap, and then they pass the ball around, and so forth and so forth. It's so wasteful. I hate this one. I really couldn't think of any more wasteful games and traditions that happen during Thanksgiving. I feel like a lot of that does happen during Christmas. If you have any more wasteful games that happen for Thanksgiving, let us know down below and let us know how to avoid them. Overall, I really think that Thanksgiving is one of our least wasteful holidays in the US. You don't really buy anything for Thanksgiving. There's no gifts involved. It's really just food. There's not a lot of games either. Especially when you start to compare other holidays like Christmas, Easter, Halloween, where you're buying things like sweaters and costumes and gift baskets and gifts and lights and decor. It can get really, really wasteful with other holidays. Capitalism hasn't quite gotten a chokehold on Thanksgiving yet. Please don't stress too much about the waste. Of course, your actions matter. Your small actions do matter. But at the end of the day, you need to buy juice boxes for the kids at your Thanksgiving. That's okay. Especially if that stress about waste and emissions starts to take away from your joy during the holiday season. It starts to take away from you spending quality time with your friends and family. That can be a problem. That's really easy to fall into as a beginner zero waster. I definitely have done that in the past. And it can be really hard to get over that perfection mindset. But it is important to know that while our small actions do matter, you and I on an individual, very small level, we are not killing the planet. Say, for example, the only thing that you can do this year is convince your family to not have a turkey, but you're still using paper plates. That's a step in the right direction. Baby steps matter. Maybe next year you can have a turkey-free Thanksgiving and use reusable plates. Maybe next year you can also omit the wasteful games. There are so many ways that you can keep pushing and pushing just a little bit more of an eco-friendly celebration every single year, and eventually it'll be pretty eco-friendly. And as I said, Thanksgiving really is not the most wasteful holiday. If this is a holiday that nobody in your family can budge on, save it for Christmas, a holiday that's truly, really wasteful, and we'll be talking about more in the coming weeks. So happy holidays. I hope that you're having a lovely holiday season so far. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. Again, I have more holiday content linked above and below for you to check out after this. More ways to have an eco-friendly Thanksgiving, how to throw a zero waste party, and since Christmas is just around the corner, how to have a zero waste Christmas as well. Once again, I thank you for your time. I will see you in the next video, but until then, remember that your small actions make a big difference in the long run. Bye guys. Anyway, this is a US holiday that we celebrate on the third Thanksgiving. If this is not possible for you, your next bet. Plus, I think it's also important to remember that I don't know what I'm gonna say.